Welcome back. It is my absolute pleasure to serve you and to be with you. Episode 27. I don't know. I'm still working through, am I partial, given my perspective on family and connection? Or was it just something about when I heard more and more around this idea of no contact that I was just simply compelled to say something, to weigh in my perspective around it. But nonetheless, welcome back to Beyond the Spot, where we are decolonizing healing one brain at a time. This is episode 27, entitled No Contact. When roles replace relationship and humanity gets lost. I am Tracy Gantlin-Monroy, licensed professional counselor, spiritual healer, brain-spotting trainer, and quite frankly, your community member. Yeah, because we're all in community together. I am a community girl, and that is amongst my very favorite of places. This week, this conversation is layered. This is a tender conversation. For some, it may even feel charged. The fact of the matter is, it is necessary. Today, we're talking about no contact, not as a trend, absolutely not as a weapon, and not even as a clinical or clinician's directive, but as a rupture that reveals something deeper. When family systems stop seeing each other's humanity, roles take over. Functions of those roles take over. Mythology comes into play and takes over. And separation in and of itself becomes the loudest truth in the room. Before we move into this terrain, I just want to extend a reflective invitation to simply take a breath with me. Place a hand where your body feels present and ask yourself, who do I become in my family? A role, a function, or a human? And just notice what arises in your system and be mindful. There's no judgment. Thank you for joining me today. I am excited that you're here. And this may be an episode to share with a friend, with a family member, with a coworker. I appreciate your support. Beyond the Spot, Decolonizing Healing One Brain at a Time, is a podcast that weaves, my first love, of course, brain spotting, and somatic informed modalities with embodied healing, cultural consciousness, and real talk about trauma, resilience, and recovery. Hosted by Tracy Gantlin-Monroy, a licensed professional counselor, spiritual healer, and the first Black female brain spotting trainer in the world. Each episode dares to dismantle mental health myths, uplift lived experiences, and restore collective wisdom. One conversation at a time. Beyond the Spot podcast is for educational purposes and is not therapy. Please reach out to licensed medical and mental health professionals. Thank you. No contact is not a clinical prescription, y'all. Let me say this clearly. It is never a clinician's job to tell someone to go no contact. No contact is not an intervention, a treatment plan, nor is it a therapeutic goal. It is a relational consequence emerging from layers of rupture, unmet needs, failed repair, and emotional exhaustion. Uh-huh. No contact in and of itself serves the idea that I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to be with you. Clinicians who prescribe no contact without cultural humility, without understanding family systems, without honoring lineage, commit harm. No contact is not a starting point. It is the point people reach when repair is no longer possible or no longer safe. No contact is not something a clinician prescribes. It is not a strategy. And I strongly implore you that it should not ever become a go-to. It is a response to relational rupture, often one that has gone unacknowledged for years, decades, or even generations. People don't wake up one day and say, today I will sever contact with my parents, with my family. It actually happens after repair has never been initiated or even mentioned. Accountability has been avoided. Emotional labor has been one-sided. Vulnerability has been rejected. And oftentimes, as a result of conflict having been weaponized, roles become rigid in the midst of the idea of no contact or leading in that direction. Humanity gets lost, and no contact actually becomes the only way the body can say, I cannot lose myself here anymore. Just an invitation to a pause. What rupture in your life was never spoken, never honored, never repaired? And just an invitation to allow your body to speak and respond and answer. What rupture in your life was never spoken, never honored, never repaired? That is truly a question for your system, for your body, for all of your sense of self. Let's talk about when the adult child chooses no contact. Because often people assume no contact is rooted in entitlement or even emotional weakness. I disagree. Because what I see from a clinical, spiritual, and ancestral lens and perspective is this: no contact from the adult child can be representative of of the many things. Some of the things could simply be repair was never attempted. Accountability perhaps was dismissed. How about harm was minimized? Boundaries were violated. I'll give you that. Parents stayed in the old role instead of relating to the adult child in front of them, even acknowledging that this old dynamic of you being the child and me being the parent, that changes a bit when our children become adults. Reality is The adult child usually goes no contact because their feelings were dismissed, their boundaries were mocked or punished, their pain was minimized. And we know how that can go because for many parents, you never grow mature age. I mean, I get it. I'm 55 years old and my sister still snatches my seam straight in the back of my pants. So I totally get it. And so it's not uncommon for adult children in the midst of the family dynamic that their pain is often minimized. Their actual role was prioritized over their humanity or their sense of self. And some parents believe the highest order is this idea of you're my child. How about the idea with adult children that goes no contact because their emotional labor was exhausted? And even this idea of they were never offered repair. And here's the thing, because this is not a monolithic type situation, right? And even as we talk about the idea of no contact from the adult child's perspective, right? As I honor, what no contact from adult children usually means, even looking at some of the reasons why an adult child might go no contact. And even when I talk about parents sometimes want honor without humility, access without repair, closeness without change, respect without reflection, relationship without responsibility. And the adult child's nervous system says, I cannot stay where my reality is denied. We often miss that no contact is grief work. The grief of the parents they hoped for, and the grief of the relationship they deserved. Just a reflective invitation here. What did your younger self need that was never acknowledged? Breathe with whatever arises. Breathe into that. Whatever comes up for you, just an invitation to breathe with whatever arises. This is your process. And let's go here because adult children are not the only ones going no contact. What about when the parent chooses no contact? This is the part nearly no one talks about. But newsflash, parents also go no contact. Not because they lack love, but because they lack safety. Parents also reach breaking points. Parents feel unsafe, they feel disrespected. Oftentimes, parents of adult children endure violence, manipulation, and even emotional abuse from their adult children. This isn't abandonment from the adult parent's perspective. This is their survival. Sometimes the adult child's behavior becomes volatile, disrespectful, explosive during a parent's own trauma or grief. Adult children's behavior can become entitled, verbally abusive, physically aggressive, financially exploitive, and emotionally destabilizing, especially during pivotal times for parents, such as divorce, grief, illness, trauma, financial collapse. But what parents hear is, and what they're actually told is it's their job to absorb everything, to hold everything, to withstand everything. But let me be clear and state this plainly. Ex- Excuse me. Parents too have nervous systems. Parents deserve safety too. Parents require boundaries as well. Sometimes the parent steps away because there is this looping and knowing intrinsically within themselves that they are having the expression and self talk that's actually blaring resoundingly through their system of, I cannot survive the way you relate to me. This is not abandonment. It becomes self preservation. No contact from a parent can look like a pause, protection, a plea for healing, a limit, or a boundary, and even a survival decision. Not all anger is rebellion. Not all distance is punishment. Sometimes distance is the only place left where peace can breathe. Where have you expected someone to absorb more than they had the capacity for? And just let this truth come gently, because I think it's a fair inquiry for all the listeners. Where have you expected someone to absorb more than they had the capacity for? That's a telling, reflective invitation. Yeah, I would be remiss if I did not speak on the LGBTQIA plus dimension of no contact coming from an ungrieved fantasies and unmet realities perspective, right? And I've gone here with many a client. I've had many a client come out to me, as they say. Um, in LGBT plus communities and families, no contact often arises not just from rejection, but from unprocessed grief rather than hatred. What do I mean by that? I have literally said to clients, real tea, that, you know, I can't say if your parents hate you, but I do want to invite you to consider, could it be that your parents needed an opportunity to grieve the loss of their anticipation of who you were to become? Because a lot of times parents assign roles, expectations, achievements, all the things, even on their unborn children. And so when we come into the world, they already have a preconceived notions of who they think us to be. Excuse me. The fact of the matter is, it's not uncommon for parents in their grieving process of the loss of the child they imagined, the roles they envisioned, the narratives they built, and the identity that they assigned. And without support, grief mutates into judgment, sometimes withdrawal, shame, silence, and absolutely no contact. Meanwhile, that LGBTQIA plus adult child is grieving as well. They are grieving the parents they needed and didn't get, the acceptance they deserved as a result of their humanity, and the belonging they hoped for. So, just in this dynamic, we are witnessing and experiencing two sets of griefs, two unmet realities, two identities evolving, no shared language. And the loss here is profound, not just of relationship, but also that of imagined futures. Whose version of you had to die for you to live honestly? Stay with that. Sit with that, because that is sacred. I want to talk here from a perspective of roles versus humanity, because families often interact through roles and collapse into those roles. We get so caught up in the roles that we negate, erase, overlook the humanity one to the other. You know, it's not uncommon for parents to have the perspective that I am the authority. I am the moral compass for my children. I am owed respect because I gave birth to you. You didn't give birth to me. That's common vernacular from a lot of parents, right? And so it casts the adult child as a perpetual dependent and the parent as an unchallenged leader. These roles in and of themselves creates distance, distortion, and they are deep misunderstandings. Roles erase nuance. Roles diminish humanity. Roles suffocate repair. And it's not uncommon for an adult child to give the lens and the interpretation in their voice of, I am the victim. I am the one harmed. My pain is the only pain. But here is the truth. Roles destroy relationships. They do. However, humanity repairs them. When we relate only as parent or child, we erase the wounds, the limits, fears, maturation, complexity, and the humanity. I'm just saying. Repair requires humanness from both sides and the willingness to say, I was wrong. How about I didn't know how? Whatever happened to, I expected too much. What if we're able to say, whether we're an adult child or a parent, I minimized your hurt. I didn't see your grief. I am still learning. Or even, quite transparently, I wanted the old version of you. Or I didn't know how to love who you became. Do you see how this idea of I don't know how to be with you shows up? Imagine that. I didn't know how to love who you became. That's something worth sitting with, right? And repair also requires not only humanness from both sides, but the expression and the verbalization and the embodiment of I will show up as human, not a role, not a title, not a function. How about showing up as a human? Just an invitation for reflection. What role do you hide behind when relationship feels too vulnerable? And just take your time with that, okay? Yeah. Ask yourself that. What role do you hide behind when relationship feels too vulnerable? Because here's the fact, and here is the reality. There is a cost of no contact, and it's a hefty price because with that, no contact carries grief for everyone, even to the degree of promise to come, legacy, all of that. This readily becomes ancestral trauma, as those to come are born into disconnection from the ethos, the root, and the lineage of themselves. Right now, my sister niece could benefit greatly from the knowledge of her maternal family's lineage medically. It's simply not there, it's unavailable. What would that look like for her journey given the information that could make impact that she can't know? And that's a personal story, a personal experience for me. For adult children, what becomes the cost of no contact? Lightly, and this is inexhaustively, there's the loss of history, the loss of belonging, the loss of cultural rituals. How about the loss of grandparents for future children? How about the loss of identity at the root? And for parents, when we talk about the cost of no contact, what about the loss of their guidance in the role as parents? The loss of connection with their children, the loss of legacy, because where your grandparents at? I mean, where your grandkids at, right? Even the loss of reconciliation. And how about simply the loss of the experience and chance to grow with your adult children? And let's look at the cost even from a family lineage perspective, because stories disappear and traditions dissolve. Names fade after time, after a while. And the longer there is no contact, there are way too many opportunities for repair to vanish. And a huge mentioning. Medical history, which none of us can put a price to this value, right? Yeah. When I think about this idea of no contact, it is layered, it is nuanced, it impacts beyond the people that are making it the choice, whether it be the adult child or the actual parent of an adult child. Right? It's not either or, it's and both. And just because we're not talking about parents that choose to go no contact does not suggest or mean that there aren't any, because there are many for whatever reasons. So my inquiry comes to this juncture or crossroads to say, where do we go from here? Because no contact is the rupture and the repair is the hope. Repair does not always mean reconnection. Repair means meaning making. It means truth. It means accountability. Repair means humanity. Repair absolutely means boundaries with dignity, not punishment. And repairs mean releasing fantasy so real relationship can breathe. Here is the invitation. What repair would be necessary for reconnection to feel safe or even possible? And what part of you is still waiting for someone else to go first? This is the work, y'all. This is the pathway to the healing. At the end of the day, this is the path. And there are ways. Some of the ways can be, because I do want to offer some hows to the what. Brain spotting and somatic based modalities are amazing opportunities to do this work. One of the things could be the role release spot for both the parent and the adult child. And the idea here is to release the inherited role, whether it be the rescuer, the hero, the burden, the disappointment, the strong one. And the process involves the idea of being able to scan your body to identify where the role is held in your body. And when that sensation appears, anchor your gaze. Let the nervous system unwind the identity that was never yours. Track the breath, heat, pressure, images, whatever channel that you process on. And I hope this language is clear for many clinicians listening of some things you can actually do with your clients. But the idea of tracking on the different channels, this is without forcing the narrative. That is the beauty of brain spotting for me, because you don't have to force any narratives. You can just feel it. Okay? And I want to give you a phrase for the container. I release what was placed on me. And I think that's a beautiful witnessing for any individual to have, that they can release what was placed on them, not what they owned for themselves. Even we can do an intervening around rupture with the repair dual spot for those wanting to move toward repair safely, because be mindful, I'm all about moving at the speed of safety. And what this does is integrate the memory of the rupture with the longing for the relationship, as and both. While we're acknowledging the rupture, we're also okay with acknowledging the longing for a relationship. So we're going to identify a spot for the rupture, where that hurt lives. We're going to identify a second spot for the longing, where connection still flickers. I went there. Hold both spots with bilateral alternation or stillness, even, and let the system reconcile what the mind cannot. Yeah, here's a container for this exercise. I can hold truth and longing without collapsing. Because acknowledgement is important. And there is nothing more lovely than to allow this knowing to cycle through our system, because it does get to be named and it does get to be acknowledged, and the body does keep the score. Yeah. And this repair dual spot is all about for those wanting to move toward repair safely. That's what we're talking about. I also want to offer a grief spotting intervention that can deal with anger, distance, and silence, which often covers grief. And the idea is to support your system in locating the underlying grief and allow it to metabolize. And just simply track where the grief sits, whether it's in your throat, your chest, your stomach, your jaw, your leg, your foot. And then anchor a gaze spot that co-aligns or coincides with that, and allow whatever rises to rise. No story needed, just sensation, perhaps an image, sound, a tremor. Yeah. And here's the container. Grief has permission to breathe. And just the invitation to allow yourself to breathe into that. And finally, I do want to offer an intervention having to do with nervous system boundary repair. And the idea here is to afford an opportunity to rebuild the internal capacity for relational safety. We're seeking to help the nervous system feel its own boundary as protection, not punishment. And so here it would go something like this, that you notice where the body says too much, and anchor the gaze to create internal scaffolding. Let the boundary be felt as spaciousness, not shut down. We're going from a place of contraction to expansion, for all of you familiar with brain spotting speech, right? And the container here is, my boundary is a bridge, not a wall. These are all simply invitations. I am not your therapist. I am simply sharing information that I have with community. Um, and I'm sharing with clinicians just some ideas of how they might want to formulate and work around this idea of no contact from a brain spotting and a somatic informed responsive perspective. No contact is not the villain, y'all. No contact is also not the hero here. It is the synonym of unhealed stories, unrepaired ruptures, and unseen humanity on both sides of the lineage. It is the body's last language when repair has not been nurtured, when roles have overshadowed relationship. And how about this idea that truth has gone unspoken, given the power dynamics in relationship, and when humanity has been lost? My heart to yours, my hope to you and for you, may you honor your boundaries without abandoning compassion. May you tell the truth without forfeiting your dignity. May grief find breath, and may repair find possibility. May your relationships become spaces where humanity is welcomed, not managed. May you hold your grief without collapsing into guilt. May you see the humanity in others, but never at the expense of your own. And may whatever distance you choose be guided by truth, not fear, by dignity, not duty. This is your friend and buddy and community partner. This is the one that loves you. This is Beyond the Spot. And I am Tracy Gantlin-Monroy, licensed professional counselor, Brainspotting Trainer. Until next time, may your boundaries be sacred, your relationships be honest, and your healing be yours. Have a wonderful day, night, evening, and happy holiday season. If today's episode resonated with your nervous system or your spirit, share it with someone who's still unlearning and reach out to me. My website is gracecommunitycounseling.com. You can reach me on Instagram at Monroy LPC. That is MONROY LPC. Also, I have offerings from retreats to brain spotting trainings to workshops, you name it. And I am also a speaker. So if you ever need a speaker with my skill set, look me up. Give me a call. Let's see what can happen. And absolutely for you clinicians and adjacent body healers, feel free to reach out and attend a brain spotting training. We have trainings all the time. Thank you.